Welcome, Nidia Gonzalez, to the Self-Made Babe podcast.
Thank you.
I am so excited to hop on today's episode because your business is completely going to transform so many other businesses, and it's transformed mine, which is your Dream Studios studio. So I love that you also have a business partner. So can you just walk us through the entire process of doing a joint venture and what made you want to start with your business partner?
Absolutely. Well, for starters, thank you for having me. It definitely goes beyond the studio. So before even starting up Dream Studios, I had my agency. And so that kind of got me into the world of content. I mean, I've been doing content creating and editing for like as long as I could remember. I have videos of me from when I was like, I don't know if you saw my Instagram story yesterday, but
No.
I was editing like silly little music videos ever since I was like 6. And like I've always been in the world, but obviously like at that point in time, like none of this was really like a career yet. So when I told my parents, like, I'm going to get into PR and advertising, they were just kind of like, why would you do that? Like, they're obviously Hispanic. Like, traditionally, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, become a doctor, lawyer.
Right. Like I had initially wanted to go into like law, and my parents were super excited about that. But then when I realized in 4 years, if I didn't want to do that anymore, what was I going to do with an English degree at that point? So that's when I switched over to PR, and they had no idea what that was. So it was like 4 years of just like explaining what it was. And then I kind of got into like influencer management and then doing a little bit of like my own brand partnerships and stuff. And then that's when I really started to dive into like social media. And I realized that that's something that businesses were like really needing at the time. So I started doing like friends' dads like businesses, and like one of my friends' dad had like a windows and glass company, and like I tapped into that a little bit. And then little by little I was like, wait, like I can probably start to make money off of this. And so that is when I decided to just like fully go into having an agency. I mean, at the time I was still in college, so I wasn't really taking it like fully serious. Like I was in school, and then I started an internship at FIU. And then I went to the Disney College program. Like I was all over the place. No, super fun. But I was doing all these things where like the agency thing was just kind of like on the side. And then it wasn't until flash forward 2023, I want to say, I quit my full-time job after literally just a year of being offered a full-time position post-grad. And then I took the agency thing super serious. And then flash forward to December of last year, that is when I decided I want to open up a content studio. And funny enough, my business partner is actually one of my social media management clients.
Oh, okay.
And
Amazing.
so, yeah. And so for a really long time, like we were going to studios and like renting out different Pure Space locations. And it can get expensive. It can get super expensive, especially when you're doing it a lot. So I saw it as a necessity for myself, but also for my clients. And just in general, like I was kind of like hoping for this kind of lofty type space in Miami, because there are definitely a lot of amazing studios in Miami, but I feel like there was nowhere like this where you kind of get like a city view, and like I really wanted kind of like a New York, LA type feel, but in the center of Miami. And so that's why we created this. And honestly, having a business partner has been amazing because we both kind of bring in different, I mean, she does not come from like the creative space like at all. Like she's just more of like an organizational type A, like she labels all the things. Like she takes care of like, if we're running out of like cleaning supplies, like those are the things that I'm just not good at. And then I come in more with like the creative brain and like the picking out the furniture and like knowing what equipment we needed, and just reaching out to people and socializing. And so it's definitely great because I know that like finding a business partner is very scary, and like I've heard all the stories about that. So finding somebody that can balance me out was like the best thing possible.
That's amazing. And so when you were first getting started in PR, what made you fall in love with PR and want to switch from law school? I mean, because I know there's a lot of girls that follow Self-Made Babe that are in college and that are probably wanting to maybe switch careers. I personally myself switched careers once or twice. Like you, I was thinking of doing the pre-med track, and you did pre-law. So I switched to marketing. And similarly, I had a similar experience where I was growing up and I was building my Tumblr website, coding my MySpace, hiding my top 8.
It was just always in you.
Yes. So that also led me into like branding, marketing, and building websites. Now, for all the girls that, you know, grew up being creative and being kind of like tech savvy, like what made you take that leap of faith into this side and like leaving what you knew before, which was pre-law?
So I went into FIU as like an English major. And like the main thing, I think I always had a little bit of like doubt in that. And like the fact I just wanted to have like my options open. So like what I really was always telling myself and what I had in the back of my mind is like, if in 4 years I don't want to be a lawyer, like what on earth am I gonna do with an English degree? Like I'm not gonna write a book. Like it's just not gonna it's not gonna do much for me. And so I did my research and like I really didn't I've heard of PR and like I've heard of like journalism, but I had never really known enough about it. And so there's actually an amazing track at FIU called PRAC, and it's public relations, advertising, and applied communication. So it's like,
Oh, I didn't know.
you get you're almost like triple majoring in one big major essentially. And that's what I decided to go with, mainly because I was like, if I want to go into law, PR still is a good foundation for that. You get a lot of that like writing background. And like I had read like, I don't know, articles that they were like, oh, like when they see PR and like your thing and you're applying to law school, like it's super good. So I was like, okay, you know, that still kind of leaves my door open if I want to go into law and like make my parents happy. But it also like opens me up to so much more, because I had looked over the track and it was like social media and there was classes about branding and campaigns, and like all of that really interested me. And so I felt like that curiosity was always like there. And I'm just like, if I have a feeling on something, like I need to act on it. Like I can't just like let that like sit there. Like I will just forever like live in regret. So I was like, I knew I needed to like do something about that like doubt. And so that's why I was like, I'm just going to switch over. And then worst case scenario, like I have options.
Right. And, you know, I think that's so beautiful, because sometimes, you know, it can be scary to switch career paths, and especially as a immigrant. Are you immigrant?
So my parents were, but no, I was born and raised here.
Okay. I was born, well, I was kind of a immigrant. My mom came when she was pregnant with me, and I was born here. But when, you know, when you're born from immigrant parents, you kind of feel like a sense of duty to make them happy.
Yep.
You don't want to disappoint them. So did you ever feel guilt in that?
100%. And like, it was really difficult to like escape. I mean, it was when I made the switch over, it was also like constantly in my ear about like, why would I do that? And like, you know, you kind of like grow up always getting told like they came here for you and to like make your life like, you know, so then when you're doing something that's completely opposite to what they want you to do, it's almost like you're completely tearing apart like their whole dream of like why they came here for you and for them and the whole thing. But obviously, like it also, like, even though at the time it was tough, because it's very easy to get that in your head, like everything that they're feeding, that you're not going to be successful and that PR and social media isn't real or whatever. But now flash forward to today, like they know for a fact that none of that like meant anything, because they see where I am at now and like how I've succeeded. Like one thing about like myself, and like when I like tell myself I'm going to do something, or I set myself to do something, like I'm going to do it regardless of like what the field is or what it is. So that's something I tried to always tell them. And like, they always had a little bit of doubt, but like the fact that they like still at times like supported me and like allowed me to just kind of like prove that to them, in the end like paid off. So there was definitely a little bit of guilt and a lot of doubt and like all the emotions, but it paid off. So I'm glad I pushed through all of that, because otherwise I would be a sad lawyer. Like not that you can't be a happy lawyer, but I just don't think it's for me.
No, I love that. I love that. And sometimes you just have to be true to yourself, and that's what will make you happy.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
100%.
However, did you ever, you know, pivoting into this world of PR, marketing, social media, did you ever come across moments of doubt, imposter syndrome when you're first starting out? I think it's something that's so common for a lot of us that are starting out. And I think it's just more so because of lack of experience. Once you know, have your hands like deep in the dough and you understand how everything works and how to engage with clients and lead in a professional way. Can you talk about those moments
100%.
of imposter syndrome and how you overcame those?
Yeah. So I will say in the very beginning, I really did not know what I was doing.
Oh yeah, that's
And
totally normal.
yeah, I think I want to say like 21 when I officially was like, I'm going to get my LLC and I'm going to do this. And like at the time, like my knowledge of what social media and like Instagram management was just like a pretty feed and like pretty pictures. And it wasn't as like in depth as it is now, where you have to have like a super tailored strategy, and like now it's a lot more difficult and like complex than it was back then. And so then I had no idea like what a contract was even for, like what the purpose was. And so my first big client, which is actually still my client to this day, was asking me for like an SOW and like sending me over contracts, and they really had control in that conversation. And I was so confused, but I was just kind of like, yeah, sure. Like just kind of like a fake it till you make it kind of energy. And that's kind of how I want to say I was for like the first like year or so, especially because I was still like in school and just kind of like juggling both things. But honestly, like it was very much like a lot of that, like kind of like learning in the moment. But I think that's super important because I think a lot of people, and like there was a time where like before I even launched my LLC or opened up my Instagram, I was like, I need to make sure that everything is perfect, and I need to make sure that I have this and then my branding and da 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 da. And although those things are important, I feel like also just like jumping into it and like taking the leap of faith is better than to not like to wait. I saw something yesterday that was like, your like competition or something like that might not even be half as talented as you are, but because they're showing up and because they're consistent, like they're doing like better than you.
Of course.
And so that kind of is like that mentality that I was trying to put myself in, that it's like, even if it's not perfect, even if it's like I'm not the most knowledgeable person, like I might as well just jump into it and learn along the way. And so that's just kind of like how it's been since then. But the imposter syndrome, like to date, like exists.
Still
like
exists. Okay.
Definitely still
Good to know.
exists. I think like we all kind of like suffer from that a little bit. Like we, you know, I think it's like human nature to like look at what everyone else is doing. And like at the end of the day, like everyone's journey is obviously their own, but it's definitely natural. And like sometimes like I've always been like, I always want to be like one step ahead, like not of
Always.
anyone, but just like when I complete something, like I opened up the studio and I'm like, okay, what do I do next? Like
Right.
I'm just always like, I need to be doing something.
Which is like for people listening, like the podcast space, this does not exist when she launched it. That's what came afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
great explanation, like a great
No, yeah, that's a
example
great
of that.
lead up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we opened up the studio, like we started it off obviously as like a content studio and we wanted to do events. But then we were like, we need to tap into like the podcast space because number one, we saw a lot of people reaching out and asking about it. And we were like, we're missing like a pretty big group with that. And so that's why we were like, okay, well, we're going to figure out how to convert our upstairs, which like this one, it's not a podcast. It's literally like a backdrop set. And so we're going to figure out how to like convert it into a podcast set. And then like, who knows what we're going to do next because we just never stop. But that's just kind of how I've always been. Like, I think the imposter syndrome is more like me to me. Like I always want to be doing something new and fresh and like exciting because I am a Gemini. And so I got
me too.
Really?
Yeah, June 1st.
Oh my God, I'm May 21st.
Oh, cute.
Wait. But yeah, I think that just makes me like easily bored. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and when I'm bored, I'm like, I need like new, like a spark of inspiration or like a new challenge. And that's just how I've always been.
That's amazing. I mean, I think maybe your sign does take place into how we act as entrepreneurs.
For sure.
But also, you know, when you were first starting your podcast studio and your dream studios where it was a content studio, was there anything, you obviously mentioned earlier that there was a gap in the market, and I would say in Miami there was a gap and you filled it successfully. What were the key things that you noticed in identifying those gaps, and how did you, you know, what was the market research like? You know, walk us through that process for starting entrepreneurs.
So I will say that it wasn't like we didn't go too in depth on the research aspect, but what we did notice and like what we heard, it was more of like a survey type of thing. Like a lot of people were telling us that all these podcast studios were kind of like the same in terms of like the same like neon like sign and like the
Okay.
same blocky black like roof, so like very much like repetitive like recording studio vibes.
Right.
And so we wanted something that was a little bit more like laid back, like lifestyle, like something that both like Maria and I kind of like resonate with, and something that just like matches the overall like vibe of the studio. And so we did a little bit of research. We looked at like some different like aesthetics and prints and things that we liked. And so this to me is just something that like is very neutral. Like it can fit both like a masculine vibe, a feminine vibe. And so that's just kind of like what we went for. And then obviously we researched like pricing, and like we noticed some things were like a little bit more expensive than others. And then ultimately like we thought that the best option was to like launch the podcast membership, because I think most people that have podcasts, like they want that like aligned look and feel every episode. And so kind of giving people the opportunity to come multiple times a month and like having that set amount of hours that works for them. Like we thought that would be the best way to kind of roll it out. So that's what we kind of did. We rolled out the podcast first and then the memberships like right after. So it was just kind of like one thing led into the other.
Oh, I love that. And then going back to your entire studio, initially before the podcast, what was the intention for? Was it for photo shoots? Was it for content creators to come in?
Right. It was mainly for content, and it still like really is like that's our primary focus, like people coming in for like photo shoots, content, UGC. I mean, like the studio, and something that we don't even talk about enough is the fact that like the bathrooms themselves are like content worthy. Like they're aesthetic, like they work for like skincare campaigns, or like if you're doing like a UGC, like get ready with me, like anything like that, like the bathrooms are super nice for that. Like we have 3 city facing balconies, which is something else that like we definitely don't talk about enough. But that's another thing that we're actually kind of like working on, is we want to furnish the balconies to kind of give each balcony its own kind of like theme and like aesthetic, so that people also get to like use them as well. But yeah, content is like the main focus. So like we tried to make every single corner, like downstairs, especially in the Meraki lounge, like content worthy. Right. So thinking if like you're gonna do like a campaign for a specific brand or like outfits, like every corner like works for that, as well as like photo shoots. I mean, we've already had a little bit of everything in here. We've done like maternity shoots. We've had people come for like UGC campaigns. Trying to think like what else. We've done like grad shoots, dentists, people.
Grad shoots,
yeah. So a little bit of everything. We've had some like fashion shoots as well. So yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. And you know, honestly, your studio is actually very well, you know, decorated. The location is amazing. It's a corner unit. You know, just for everyone that's interested and lives in Miami. It's a corner unit. It has floor-to-ceiling windows. The ceiling heights are so immense. So going back to like finding the right place too, because obviously I'm in real estate, and the most key bar that everyone says is location, location, location.
Right.
So what made you like want to move to Wynwood, or like how did you come about finding this place? You know, because I think there's a lot of people that are wanting to open brick and mortar stores or studios similar, or even just a restaurant, whatever the case may be.
I think last year in May, we did a shoot. So Maria and I, my business partner, we did a shoot for her brand at a studio. And I think that day afterwards, we were like, we need to do this. Like, what are we doing? I was like, this is something we could definitely do ourselves. And then I'm very much like, once I get something in my head, like there's no getting it out. Like I went on the computer, I started looking at like different, like, I think I would look up like in like industrial loft spaces and like just trying to find something more like that. And so we toured a bunch of locations, and like we went to like a Little River is kind of like blowing up now, and like kind of like turning into this like very artsy space. So we toured a lot of spaces over there, but like nothing ever, like, you know, you just get that feeling. And like when we walked in here, that's when I got that kind of feeling of like, oh, okay. I envisioned it as soon as I walked in. I was like, I see it. Like the natural light was like really what sold me. Like as soon as we walked in, I think like the blinds were like fully up, and it like felt like you walked into like heaven. Like it was just like, it was perfect. I was like, okay, like where do we sign? Like I'm ready. And then I obviously like envisioned, I was like 2 stories. I was like looking at the balconies, the bathrooms, everything. I was like, I can see so much like being done here. So my brain started going like in a bunch of different directions, and we moved pretty quickly. Like I think we toured this, I want to say October 2024, and then we got our keys November 1st.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we were like super quick. And then we did our grand opening in December. So we moved pretty quickly. And like, let me tell you, like opening up a business, like it sounds like it's like smooth sales. And like, this was my first like physical like business and like location. And like my first time having to like pay rent for a business. And like, guys, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it was definitely a lot opening this up. I just like jumped into it, and like luckily I had Maria with me, because we were able to like really like figure everything out separately, and like she took on like part of it. I was really helping and planning like the content strategy and like how we were going to launch it, and like bringing in influencers in the very beginning, because we obviously wanted to already have like that proof of concept of the space being used. But ultimately, like it worked out, and here we are. So.
Oh, I love that. And then I guess it's pretty impressive. You said you found the place in October, got the keys in November, opened in December. Yeah. So when was like the first idea that popped into your head, like Dream Studios, we should do this? And then what was the lead up to
For like the
getting
name?
yeah. No, not. We can talk about the name.
Oh, okay.
But no, we'll talk about the name later. What I meant was mostly like how long did you sit with the idea of Dream Studios before like touring a place and getting the keys? And
I
opening
want
it
to
up?
say May is when we had that conversation after that
Okay.
studio that we went to. And then that's when we kind of started doing research, but like very lightly. Like it was just kind of like I would go online and be like, okay, like this is cool, like whatever. I don't think we toured a location until July. And then from there, we would see like 2 to 3 places like every so often. And then it wasn't until we toured this one, because like after a while, like nothing would really pop up, or like if we saw a place that like we liked, like it would like go off the market. And then eventually we stumbled across this, and this was one that I was like, we cannot, like we can't lose
sleep on
this.
it.
We can't sleep on this. I think we both like connected, like we looked at each other, like we just knew. And I think you had asked about location. I didn't touch on that, but like to me, Wynwood is like the heart of like art
Miami,
in
yeah.
Miami and the heart of Miami. And so I feel like most people that like are in this area, or like when I come here, like that's just what I like feel. And so I felt like it was just fitting. Like, and I didn't even tour it thinking like, okay, it's in Wynwood. Like there's actually a couple of other studios in this same building. And
They're
so
not as cute as yours, or
I mean, that is that's subjective, but definitely, I think that's another thing. Like we had used some of the other studios in the building, and that I think is one of those other things that prompted us to be like, wait, like we should look into the building. And I think we called. We didn't even like see a listing or anything like that. Like we called and we were like, oh, like do you guys happen to have? And they were like, yeah, like let's get you guys to like tour a couple spaces. And then we toured some of the smaller ones, and this is the biggest like loft space in the whole building. I think there's like a matching corner unit on the other side, which funny enough, they're a PR agency. I just think that's
love.
like super cool. But yeah, we toured this and we were like, girl, sold. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. And so going back to the name, I always, a common DM that I get is also people struggling, what should I name my business? I'm starting, I want to start something, and I just always struggle. And I always tell them like, just, either one, pick a name, like a word that you love in a different language.
Love
Two,
that.
build like a portmanteau word, which is like making one word and connecting it with another word and making a new word. So how did you come up with the name Dream Studios?
So it was kind of aligned with like my agency name. So my agency name is Dreamy Socials. And like the reason I came up with that name, I always loved like the idea of like, okay, like I'm bringing your dream brand to life, and like kind of like a cloud was always like an element to that brand, and just everything always like dreamy. And like when I walked in here, like not because like it's directly associated with my agency, but that was kind of like the feeling I got when walking in here, is like this was so dreamy. And I obviously didn't want it to be too correlated to my agency, or like I didn't want people to have that confusion of like it's the same thing. So I just took the Y off, and I was like, well, this is very much of like a dream for both her and I. And so we kind of incorporated like little elements of both of our businesses into it, because obviously with the name being Dream, it's like that's kind of closely tied to me. So what we did to kind of like tie in both of like our personalities a little bit is we actually named the bottom floor after her business, which is Meraki,
Cute.
which is Greek for, I think in Greek, what it means is like to do something with like soul and like love or something like that. And that's just kind of like where her business ties into the picture. So we named the bottom floor that because it just does have that more like creative, fun vibe. And then we named this because it's like the higher level, the cloud suite, and it just kind of ties into the whole like dreamy theme and like the fact that you're stepping into this dream space to create content. So that's kind of how it came about. It didn't really take a lot of thinking, and like kind of to what you said, like I feel like a lot of people linger on that for like a really long time. Like, what should I name it? And then it's like you spend so much time thinking about something that like at the end of the day, yes, it is important. It's what you're going to stick with forever. But I think what's more important is like the story behind that name, or like behind the brand.
Right.
And the branding. Like as long as like your branding and your storytelling is on point, like the name, it's important, but it'll stick with people if that story is powerful enough.
Exactly. I think that's so true what you just mentioned, because if there's no meaning behind the name behind a brand,
Yeah.
like no one's going to feel connected to it. No one's going to want to say, I feel identified with their message. So I really love that you mentioned that. And another thing that I want to talk about too is there's a lot of women in my community that are wanting to break into the social media space and maybe become social media managers, maybe even open their own agencies like you and I. What was it like working with your first client and first starting out? Like, how did you get them? You know, because I think a lot of people are like wanting to say, I want to quit my job, or like, I want to do my own thing. What's your advice for them?
So I would say do research, but like I said earlier, like don't get yourself too caught up in like the nitty gritty of like contracts and this and that. Like in the very beginning, again, like I was honestly winging it, and like it was a pretty big client that I will not name, because if they find out that I was winging but I was definitely winging it at first. Like I was just kind of like learning day by day, and obviously like the feedback helped. And like I think when you start, like that's super normal. Like clients will give feedback, and like at times like you do definitely have to listen to the client. And I definitely learned a lot about like my communication style and like how to deal with a client. And honestly, like I'm lucky that my first client experience like wasn't anything bad. Like it was definitely a learning experience. Like that really taught me how to like move forward and like how to continue gaining clients. But the way I actually landed my first client like was through like word of mouth. So like a friend of a friend that was just like, well, you know, she's in this space and she does a great job. And that's kind of how that happens.
Amazing.
And they literally called me over the phone. It was very like, I want to say casual, because it was just a lot of phone calls and just like me really selling myself with like no portfolio, which like goes to show that like a lot of people also focus on that too much, where they're like, well, I don't have a portfolio and I don't have anything to show.
Right.
And like, I don't know what I did, but I must have sold myself well, because it was really just like a couple phone calls. I barely had like work to show. And I would say for like a lot of people that are also scared to like start because of that, like it's honestly so easy to like create like fake portfolio work. Like nowadays, like I have this like term that I like to call FUGC, and it's like fake UGC. So like
Okay.
grab 5 products that you have at home and like create a commercial for like those 5
Right.
products, or like a UGC campaign, or like a social video. And even like establishing your personal brand too. I will say that's probably the only thing I had to my name at the time, is that I did have a presence on my own account. So like it showed that I was already creating content and that I knew how to do it. So I would say that's pretty important in this industry. Like it's not crucial, but I will say clients definitely look at it. I think that all my clients probably stalked me prior to like, you know, moving the ball with me. So I would say definitely establishing your personal brand is super important. Honestly, regardless of what business or what field you want to get in, I think that's pretty crucial nowadays.
1000%. And I love that you created your fake word, FUGC, because I also too say that the best way to get started is also by having a fake portfolio. Even if it's not a
100%.
fake, it's not a fake portfolio. You're
Yeah.
showcasing your work at the end of the day. And so when you're also trying to put yourself out there, it's so important to let the people within your sphere of influence know that you are offering these services, that you exist, that you started this business. Because if not, no one's going to contact you, or they're not going to think, oh, I have a friend that does this.
Right.
And it's so important, because little do you know, even if it's people that you might be thinking that don't care about you, like maybe you follow them since high school or whatever.
It's subconscious though.
Subconscious. They still keep up with you. And it's very funny, because this is a sidetrack, but I went to my 10-year high school reunion.
Oh my God.
And obviously, like, we don't really keep in touch. We only keep in touch with the people that we were like, great friends with in high school. But when I went to my 10-year reunion, I don't want to like age myself, but I'm not even old. But regardless, you know, everyone was like talking about like, oh, so you do real estate now. Oh, so you do marketing now, right?
Yeah,
I was like,
my biggest fear is my 10-year high school reunion.
Oh yeah.
When people start asking those questions, I'm gonna be like,
no, but it's. I went because I was like, it'll be fun.
yeah, for sure.
Literally leading up to the day before, I was like, I'm not gonna go. This is so whack. I don't talk to anyone. The people I do talk to,
But that's
like,
insane.
I talk to. But I was
The
like,
fact
you know
that they
what?
keep up.
Everyone does. So that's so important to like put yourself out there. Even if you have like 100 followers on Instagram, like people have their own connections that they can connect you to.
Yep.
And so if you're not actively sharing your services or sharing how
What
you can
you
be
do.
useful to someone or someone's business, then they're not going to hire you. So
Agreed.
that's a great way to get started. So I love that you mentioned the FUGC, because I'm going to start using that.
Yay!
But I'll make sure to like give you credit for the FUGC.
I'm
'cause
trademarking FUGC.
You should. You should. So going back also, because I know a lot of people, and I feel like I talked about this with a lot of other agency founders, you know, pricing your services is kind of a tedious task, but also how do you measure what your worth is for a lot of people that are starting out, you know? What's your take on that? Or like, should we talk about like what's the industry standard or like what's the hourly rate?
We can talk about both. I think that's a very like gray area right now, like in the creative space, like in general, because one thing that I've like just kind of like heard like from like the client perspective, but also from the agency perspective is that everybody's prices are different. So it's like you never really know what you're getting from like a customer standpoint. And I feel like the goal like moving forward for agencies and creatives is like to kind of like establish that industry standard, because I feel like that's what's happening right now is that there really isn't one.
Right.
And so I actually joined like a coaching program like not too long ago, and we actually have this like pricing calculator as part of it. And what brings together that pricing calculator is like the amount of deliverables that you're giving a client, whether that's stories or how many feed posts. And I will say, I think I know like most like agency prices, like honestly locally, and I will say that we are all underpaid.
Oh, okay.
For a fact. But that's just because I think that like, so one thing that's like not normalized, I think across the board, like with social media agencies, is that a lot of agencies don't actually do the content creating. They ask the client or outsource the content. But like I've heard a lot of like agencies that do this where they just kind of like get the client to feed them the content, or like a photographer, a videographer, and they just kind of do like the strategy side. And I think that's awesome. That's honestly like something that I want to kind of like start looking into doing. But on my agency, we do all the content creating. So we do the photo, the video, the strategy. Like we basically handle everything like inside and out for their socials. And when you're taking such a big charge, I think a lot of people think that that is the standard and they expect that. And that's not the way it is. So like one thing that I've learned, and I bumped my prices up this year because I definitely have hit a point where it's like a lot of demand. And I'm pretty like booked and busy. And so girl, once you have demands, you got to bring those prices up.
Of course.
But besides that, like besides bringing up my prices, like I joined this coaching program and I looked into that pricing calculator, and like without even including like the content creating side, like it still tells me that I'm underpaid.
Okay.
Just based on the amount of like deliverables that I'm like pushing out for my clients. So I will say like in terms of like what the industry standard is, and like everybody will tell you honestly something different, but I think at minimum, if you're posting for someone, whether it's 3 times a week or 5 times a week, it should be minimum like $2,000 a month, I would say. You're basically like, I don't want to say the backbone of this brand, but if you're doing a good job, I mean, today I was working on a case study for a client, and in just a year, we've boosted her following by 400%, over 400%.
Right.
And so it's like, and honestly, this is a client that's been selling out like every single Sunday. They're a pop-up coffee cart, and they're launching their next venture now for their business, which is kind of like in the works and I can't talk about, but luckily thanks to the efforts of social media, which just goes to show that like she got like double, if not triple, her return on investment on that. So at the end of the day, it's a write-off. You're going to get a return on investment 9 times out of 10. So I think it's definitely like a worthy investment, especially now. Like it's a necessity. It's not even like a question of like, do I need it? Like, it's just a matter of like, do you want quality social media work, or do you want somebody like just whipping out Canva templates 24/7?
Right.
Which like no hate on Canva. We love Canva.
Yeah, we love Canva. I love Canva.
Yeah,
Canva, please invite us to the Canva events.
We love you.
But no, I mean, I love that you mentioned also that the industry standard is a lot different than everything else across the board. But what about for those, you know, for the people that are charging hourly? Because personally, I like to offer packages, and I'm assuming you offer packages just by the way that you're talking right now. But for those like that are wanting to like get into the industry and like are wondering like, what should I charge an hour?
Yeah.
Or honestly, don't even charge by the hour, charge by the package, but
that's
just in case.
So I charge by the package, and I will say I'm probably like, this is probably not the best advice, because I was recently told that I should probably start like tracking my hours per client so that you really see how much of your time is going towards each client individually, and to make out like whether or not you're actually getting paid enough per client. Because if you break it down and you think like, you know, normal full-time salary job wise, it's like if you're devoting 40 hours a week for $2,000 a month, that doesn't make any sense, right? So I think it just depends. Like it's just like, I think whatever works for you, but I will say tracking your hours like by the hour, like would probably be a good strategy, something I probably should start implementing. I just haven't really like held myself to it yet. Like I downloaded like Clockify and I probably should be clocking in my hours all the time,
Oh,
but
love.
I
I've never heard
don't
of
do that.
Clockify.
Yeah, apparently it's like a free tool that like not like sponsored, but it's like a free
cool.
it's a free tool that you can like track like your hours or whatever. And so I told my team, like my team is actually holding themselves accountable to doing that because obviously their work also accounts for each client that you're, you know, working towards. But I have not done that yet. So I will keep you guys updated on what that looks like. It's probably a lot of hours.
I love that. And then also talking about the tools and before we wrap up and whatnot.
yeah.
But what are your favorite social media tools for managing businesses?
Ooh, so obviously CapCut, we love her. I do everything on CapCut. I edit everything on CapCut, and I've become like a CapCut ninja. Like at this point, like I'm editing on the go all the time. And the desktop version is great as well. Other than CapCut, again, Canva, we love her. She's great for like a quick story post or just anything on the go. I actually use for analytics. It's called Minter.io.
Okay.
I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, and I don't even remember how I stumbled across it, but it is amazing, and it goes down to like so much detail for like client reports, which I send out like quarterly.
Oh, amazing.
And then other than that, there's a tool that like just popped into my brain and it like left. Notion.
Oh, Notion's amazing
I
too.
love Notion. I will say getting into Notion, it takes a while. I think I had it at one point and I was like, I can't
Yeah,
bring
it's too
myself to this.
much.
But then I hired someone to like completely build out my Notion, like customized to my business. Game changer.
Oh, yeah?
Absolute game changer. I have all my client portals on Notion. I have my personal like brand portals on Notion. I organize the studio content on there, my content, client content. Like my whole life is on Notion.
I love Notion. Notion is incredible.
It's great.
I love that. Okay. And then also, just to start wrapping up the podcast episode, because this has been amazing getting to learn about you, how you started your business and whatnot. But is there anything else that you are excited that you haven't been given the chance to talk about?
I mean, I'm probably gonna, well, coffee and creatives is something that we've started working on at the studio. It's going to be like we already did our first one in March, right? That's a month that just passed. April. It was in April. Guys, being an entrepreneur, like you don't even know what time of the year
You
it
don't
is.
even know what day it is.
No. But we just launched our first one in April. It was a huge success. We're doing that every month. It's just kind of like a community initiative for creatives to like get together and like talk about different topics. So in March, we talked everything like pricing and contracts and like how to like really like establish your worth as a creative. And then in May, we're going to be doing a like fashion photography hands-on session. So that's going to be really fun because they're going to be doing like a live styling session and then coming up here and just doing like hands-on like photo ops with models. So that's kind of like something that we're ongoingly working on. I do want to also like establish more like community events for my agency. That's something I want to do more of in 2025 because we do everything digitally and like I really want to start tapping more into in-person events. I feel like that's a huge like new wave of like we all want to do things in person. So I want to start tapping more into that. Other than that, I think I need to take a chill pill for a little bit. I need to travel this summer. That is what I need to do.
That's so funny. I was trying not to choke while you were talking.
No,
you
you're so
going. You're so amazing. Okay, I love that. That's so incredible. And also, you mentioned a quote that you loved earlier, which I fully align with that quote 1000%. Is there another quote that guides you throughout your daily life?
I don't think so. No, I would say that like honestly, my little brain guides me through my daily life. I have like major ADHD. And I think that like honestly, I take it more as like a superpower than I do like a con. Cause honestly, that's what keeps me like going and like driven 24/7. So shout out ADHD.
That's beautiful. Undiagnosed here. Self-diagnosed.
Diagnosed, actually.
That's incredible. But thank you so much, Nidia,
Thank you.
for hopping
It was
on the podcast. This
awesome.
was great. I love chatting with you.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
I am Nidia Gonzalez on Instagram, Dreamy Socials on Instagram, and this is Dream Studios Co. on Instagram.
Thank you guys for hopping on to the episode, and I hope you're back for the next one.